On today's show, part 2 with myself and Glen Willis talking about Trae Young is on the way.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1544 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Wednesday evening into Thursday. And today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. And right now, if you're a new customer, bet $5, you get $200 off in bonus bets, guaranteed. FanDuel.com/LockedOn is the place to get started. And it is part 2 of 2 with myself and Glen Willis talking about Trae Young. If you missed it, part 1 is where I would start. It should be available in this same podcast feed right now. And it dropped it basically at the same time. So that should be available for you there. Without any more delay, I should also tell you to make it your first listen each and every day. And please subscribe to this podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, places like Apple and Spotify, YouTube, etc. But no other things to plug at this point in time. Mailbag podcast, all that fun stuff. We've been very busy on this feed in recent days. But part 1, start there. Part 2, here we go with myself and Glenn. I purposely don't want to end with defense, so let's do it now.
Okay.
Just so, it is what it is. We got to talk about it a little bit. Everyone knows Trae's not a great defender. But I'll just throw this out there. And we both watched a lot of Trae Young defense last season. A couple of the more prominent advanced metrics liked it a lot more last year. He took a sizable jump in EPM to I think he was in the 40-something percentile. That's not like much, but that's a lot better than it's been. Raptors, same thing, over 538. I think another one, that the LeBron metric, didn't really see it. He was still near the bottom of the league. And look, I have no interest in litigating whether Trae is the 5th worst or 30th worst defender in the league. It doesn't actually matter to me. One thing I will say, and I'll throw it to you, is that I think we have seen clear improvement from Trae Young defensively from where he was at, where I really did think he was maybe the worst guard, because we've had that discussion too about like the damage that a point guard can do defensively. Let's not do that. But I think he is improved. That does not mean he's good, because he's not. But that's where I want to start this off by just saying, look, I get he's not very good. That's probably never going to change. But I think there's between now and where he was, let's just say 3 years ago, rookie was even worse. But he's gotten a lot better to the point where it's not always a tire fire, and I think that's notable, and it's also something that he's going to have to continue to at least maintain, if not improve, because as we've discussed a lot, as a team, they got to get better defensively, and that's not just Trae. And it drives me nuts. I'm sure it does to you when, especially again, I'm not usually going with the national crutch, but I'm doing it again now. People act like it's just Trae's fault that they're not good defensively, and that makes me insane, because it's absolutely not. So anyway, what do you think about Trae's defense at this point, Glenn?
Yeah, I think we saw examples of him advancing his game on the end of the floor last year. I think, when we've talked about, when Kevin and I recorded a couple times back, we talked about consistency really is going to be everything with this team, right? And that's where it is for Trae on defense, right? Now there's a lot to kind of think about with that. Number one is, can Quinn and his new coaching staff help Trae land on an approach that's going to reserve more energy for the defensive end of the court, right? Yeah. Historically, he's exerted so much energy on the offensive end of the court. And that's a thing that the coaching staff and the team has to help him with. And then Trae has to buy in as well. Okay, I'm going to be a little less active, a little bit less exerting myself on offense because I've got to save it on defense. I think last year, Longobardi helped a lot too. There were things that they were doing last year. There was things Trae was doing last year that he wasn't doing before. What are the things I think are most important for Trae? And this is going to some listeners, it might be like, oh my God, number one, Trae, keep yourself out of trouble. Keep yourself out of a bad spot, right? Yeah. If you're getting a screen, if your guy's getting called up for a screen and you've got Hunter on your side of the floor, can you pre-switch that and send Hunter up with your guy to get that screen or not? Recognizing as soon as the other team is getting into their set, what's going on. And as the season went on, they got better and better and better at pre-switching. JC was awesome at it. Hunter helped him a lot. Yep. And then the second half of the season, it was more of Trae being like, oh no, hey, and him initiating.
Make it an alarm. Yeah. Well, no, that's something I want to say real quick, and I'm not telling you. That's for everybody. I know you know this. The Hawks do have different rules for Trae than everybody else defensively, and that's the way it has to be. And I think that it's good that they acknowledge it. You know what I mean? Like he gets accounted for, he gets looked out for, however you want to say that, by his teammates more than everybody else. And by the way, that's a very typical thing for a star offensive guard in particular. It's not out of the ordinary. But I just want to say that out loud. Like he does get they know, and I think he acknowledges, and you just brought it up. I think he's buying more and more into that now. Like, you know what? Maybe it's a pride thing, but like, put that to the side, kind of raise your hand, and whatever metaphorical way that is, like announce that, hey, I need some help here, because for better or worse, his physical limitations, there's always matchups where it's going to be bad if he gets caught in a certain place.
Yeah, I know. It's funny because as you're talking, I'm recalling specific play. Like there was a play last year where he was like up around the elbow, and Jalen was behind him, and Trae saw it right away, and you heard it, Jalen, you know, and he called that pre-switch, right? Yep. And I know it may sound like that you can't be talking about a positive defender or a helpful defender. No, that is super helpful. That's
smart
and super valuable, right?
Yes.
And over the years, I think the Steph template that applies for Trae is on defense. Now, as Steph has gotten older, he's stronger on ball. You know,
and he's bigger than Trae too.
He's bigger than Trae, right?
Yeah.
But it's taken till year 8, 9 before Steph ever got to the point where he could try to really have an impact on ball. So number one is keep yourself out of trouble. Take ownership. There's not a Draymond on the Hawks right now, right? No. And for 3 or 4 years, it was really Draymond driving all of that defensive brain for the Warriors. So to me, it's like my accountability, the thought I have, Trae, keep yourself out of trouble. Keep yourself clean, right? Don't get caught up in something that you can't get out of. Use your teammates. That is probably the most important defensive skill that he needs to be really consistent with all the time. And again, some listeners might be like, "Oh, that's way too much work." No, this is fairly normal.
This is real.
Go watch 3 Trailblazers games and watch how many times Dame gets himself pulled out of a bad spot by leveraging a teammate to kind of help him with that, right? It's pretty typical, and Trae has to take what he did in my view in spots last year and did with some increasing consistency over the second half of the year, and do it this year basically all the time and with that consistency. So that's number one thing. The number 2 thing is you don't have to have size to communicate. I thought his communication went from a C- to a C+ last year, something like that. Mm-hmm. When he was low, man, you could hear him yelling, "I'm low, I'm low, I'm low." And his spacing as a low man was a whole lot better. And he can continue doing that. He can get to hopefully a B+ communicator this year. Again, this may sound wild, but even communicating all the time is exerting, right? And so you got to have enough energy for defense. Probably the thing that fans will most remember is as the season went on, he became, especially in critical points of game, a guy that was producing turnovers, right? Yep. And he would Trae's super smart. He sees everything, right? And so it's a matter of, I'm going to use my energy to jump that passing lane or to get a dig in when I got right. Dig down from a side where a big man has kind of turned his back to where the help's coming from. I'm going to go get that basketball, and all that sort of stuff. So if you ask me to kind of chalk up where it is, right? I mean, there's also just be a good team defender, get back, help be part of a 5-man unit, getting back in transition, right? That's the stuff everybody has to do. But we're kind of talking about the thing specifically to Trae. It's keep yourself out of trouble, communicate at even higher level, and then really pick your spots and try to be more active as a guy that can produce turnovers. Because especially if he's the one who collects the ball off of a dig deflection or whatever it is, and you're in really good shape, right? And so there's a way to kind of, coaches talk about all the time, generate offense from defense. I think there's more Trae can do there if his kind of energy distribution offensively and defensively is in a little bit of a better place. So those are the things I called out for Trae of how he can be an increasingly impactful defender. But it all really does start with keeping himself out of bad spots.
Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, and get ready for the NFL season right now with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, if you're a new customer, bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed at FanDuel. And plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV right now. FanDuel has point spreads, over-unders, money lines, player props, futures, and much more. The app at FanDuel is very safe and secure, and they cover the entire range of sports they're looking for in the sports world, of course. That includes places, sports like the NFL, of course, college football, NBA, WNBA, MLB, college basketball, golf, tennis, auto racing, soccer, and much more. It's all there at FanDuel, and now is the best time possible to join FanDuel. It's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the NFL season right with an offer that you don't want to miss. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that again, it's not we're not expecting him to move mountains defensively. It's the little things. There are different rules for him. That's okay, but it's just that I totally agree about his hands are really good. Like when he goes for a steal, he gets it at a high level. Like he had a career high steal rate last year. It's not like off the charts. It's not like he's getting 3 steals a game, but he's adequate enough at doing that. And the way that I got asked about this by Nate Nunkin actually on his podcast, and I was like, look, if you watch Trae on the right half, like he looks pretty good defensively. Like, you know what I mean? It's just not the consistency thing that you brought up is a great point. And again, it's not just him, something you and I have been preaching the entire summer about the whole team, but he's the head of the snake. He's the best player. He can set that tone a little bit more. And it's not realistic to say, look, Trae's got to be awesome defensively for 82 games. It's just not going to happen. But more consistency, building those habits. And like I said, like if you watch the right quarter, he looks good. It's just like get more of those quarters, more of those halves, stringing them together as part of the team concept. And like, I don't know, it's hard to talk about because I can already hear people rolling their eyes about like, well, he's not ever going to be, I understand he's not going to be great, but there are things you can do to get better. And that's how it is for a lot of guys. I mean, Steph's a great example. I don't always want to use Steph, but Dame's gotten better as he's gotten older. He's another guy who I think is a pretty bad defender on the whole, but has gotten better to, it's incremental things, but it does actually matter. And it shows up in the metrics, shows up in the way the team communicates. And, without Collins, who, we talked about that a lot on that show, we don't have to relitigate it. That's going to be a communication loss. I mean, you've been leading the charge on how much JC communicates. That guy's not there anymore. And, Clint's a great communicator. I'm sure Onyeka and Jalen will get better and better and better as they get more reps. But like, it can help when the guy at the point of attack and they try to hide him. Like it's always going to. And there's this game that everybody plays to kind of put a point on the defense. Like they're going to try to hide Trae, and other teams are going to try to attack Trae. That's never going to stop. That game his entire career is going to happen. And in the playoffs, even more so. We've seen that at times in the playoffs. I thought he actually played pretty decently against Boston in the playoffs by his standards. He was more engaged. And that goes to your point about the fact that it's an effort thing. It's an energy thing. In the playoffs, it's, I don't want to say easier, but it's a little bit more, guys are just up for it. Every game matters so much more and they're trying hard. Everybody's trying harder, but it is what it is. And I'm looking forward to see what that looks like, especially because like we'll get into it now about how this new regime is going to come in. And we kind of spent a lot of time on the Trae DeJounte thing, on the DeJounte profile. We don't have to do the whole thing again, but like, that's always what I get asked about number one. And it's like, okay, does that mean more DeJounte? I don't know what that looks like, but I do want to get into like what this is going to look like. It's not a season preview, but because we're here and it's the last one and all that stuff, like how is this going to start to maybe shift a little bit more? We talked around it, but I want to ask you what you're looking for, even early in camp. Like, I guess we'll focus on Trae, but it doesn't have to just be about Trae. Like, what are you kind of circling, even in September and October, for stuff that you're like, okay, what's this going to look like with Quinn?
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. Maybe I'll kind of close out on defense because I mean that's
Go ahead.
I can't because we'll start with Trae and kind of go from there. Right, there are two, from a volume standpoint, there are two primary things that other teams try to do with Trae on defense. One is get him switched onto the ball handler. And number two is make him the low man, which the low man is the helper at the rim, the helper in the middle, right?
Yep.
And it's funny because like 2 years ago, like I'm speculating a bit, like what I think I'm seeing a Trae was like, I'm not being put into the screen. Right?
Yeah.
Now it's like, like last year, it seemed like it was like, I don't know, 65%. We want Trae to be the low man. We want Trae to be the helper at the rim because he's got no shot to make an impact.
And that makes sense. If you're the team, I'd rather have Trae be the low man personally than
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Because in the screen, if the second defender helps Trae the right way, you can avoid that. There's lots we could talk about there, right? But as the low man, there are things you have to do. Like for example, if against the Knicks, they put him on Obi, I mean, last year, right?
Yeah.
Roster changes and all, right? And he's like, well, Obi's going to kill me on the glass, right? Or something like that. So what do? Like, you've got to be physical, like the whole possession with him, right? And you can't let Obi have a 12 foot of space to kind of run down on, And so there's so much like nuance, even in how do you execute as a low man to not give up like prime rebounding position to a guy who's a foot taller than you, or 8 inches taller than you, or whatever, but still be in the spots you need to be. And so I'm anxious to see, even in preseason, and we know that coaches don't always show all their stuff in preseason, but how are they handling when Trae's put into the switch? How are they handling when Trae is a low man? Are they, when there are 2 offensive players on the weak side of the floor, are they rotating Trae up higher out of the low man spot, right? And putting doing a kind of a pre-rotation on that side. So that, for me, is like, I want to see what is Quinn and his new staff doing to kind of technique-wise to help trade those 2 situations. That's what I'm really super interested to see. I'm interested to see, is Jalen defending guards? I'm interested to see, does DeJounte look any different? Like, I don't know. DeJounte was not good enough defensively last year. Mm-hmm. And having Trae if Trae stays where he is and DeJounte stay where he's at, it's going to be really hard to be good enough on defense. Yep. I don't know if that last serious injury DeJounte had just took a lot of the physical capability out of him to move laterally and do all the things that he used to do to be an impact defender before that injury. I don't know really what's there, but I'm anxious to see, like, schematically, are they helping these kind of 2 smaller guards, guards that don't have the traditional size you want, and defenders that are in defend on ball. What does that kind of scheme look like, right? What are they doing to kind of generate that? Are they funneling the ball towards their bigs? Are they doing something else? So that's what I'm looking for. On offense, we've kind of, I don't know, and some circles kind of talked it in the ground, right? And the number one thing what Quinn wants is, I know he wants more 3-point volume, but I would put that as kind of a 1B.
Yeah. 1A
is having guys that can attack on the catch. You'll hear Quinn say it all the time: on the catch, on the catch, on the catch, on the catch, right? And that's, get a shot up if you have the space for that. If the guy's closing out on you, put the ball on the floor, make a smart decision putting the ball on the floor, or just, if the defense is in heavy rotation, just kicking it to the next guy, right? And what Quinn is really pointing at there, maybe he's a little careful about this kind of most important part, is quickly, like immediately, because the Hawks haven't always operated with kind of an expectation that you're going to be fast processors when the ball finds you, right? Hunter struggles with that. Hunter wants to be a little bit deliberate and methodical. John was kind of a binary decision maker, right? In that type of scenario as well. DeJounte wants to let his guy get back in front of him and kind of let DeJounte kind of feel out this defender that's rotating towards him. That's what it looked like to me last year anyway. And Quinn, like, that feels like stuff that might almost be kind of genetic, like, or it almost kind of fully programmed into the way guys play. And so I'm anxious to see, like, when they're playing in the preseason game, is Hunter going faster? Is DeJounte attacking open space instead of letting the guy get back in front of him? Jalen is kind of wired for that perfectly, but he doesn't have the highest volume of reps for a guy that you want to put into potentially a role with a lot of minutes this year. And so for me, it's how are they acting collectively, and then to a degree kind of measuring them, evaluating them independently on the catch. And the second thing is, that's where most of the more tenured NBA coaches want the 3-point shots to come from: collapse the defense, kick it out. Collapse the defense, kick it out, right? Break the defense, find the open guy, pass, wide open corner, wide open right below the 3-point break. And so those are things that I'm looking for. Will the pick and roll volume be the same? I can't imagine with Trae on the team you're going to go like way away from that, right? I'm curious. Quinn at one point in time really believed in everybody touching it before you get into your set, or at least 3 guys touching it before you get into your set, right? Is that like that feels a little at a simplistic level? It feels a little counterproductive. You want Trae to be able to, really be empowered to kind of go. Will there be some balance though, right? So those are the things that I'm kind of looking for offensively when I think about them playing their first preseason game. What was probably about 5 weeks away or so, right?
Yeah, we're almost there, and it's there's so much to look at, and there's so much stuff we've already talked about, and there's the ever present question of how they look with Trae off the court, which isn't like Trae's fault, but it's always a question. I mean, it was last year they were a little bit less disastrous with him off than they had been in previous years, but still there's a drop off there. There's always going to be a drop off there, you would imagine, with the way they're constructed. Him and Murray together. I know we talked about it a lot with Murray, but Trae on and Trae off, DeJounte on was a disaster last year. Trae and DeJounte together was generally fine. It just wasn't lighting the world on fire. Process wise, all those things. The offense in particular is what falls off a cliff when Trae sits, which does make sense. And I'll just say this now, as this is a Trae Young player capsule. I've said it before, I'll say it again. The formula of Trae Young plus any level of shooting and someone he can run pick and roll with is basically a foolproof plan to be a top tier offense. Now, where they rank is up for debate, and I've said before, I think they need to be better than they were last year. But even in what was kind of a down year on offense, they were 7th in the league in offense last year.
I know. Yeah, I know. Every time I go look at that, I'm like, wait, I have some filter on this. Is after this.
No, and it's true.
I know, it's crazy. No. It's crazy.
And granted, they were better.
Was so bad for stretches last year,
right? And they were bad in fourth. They had some bad fourth quarters, and that's an overarching number, which include and famously, I think they were like 3rd after Quinn got there. They were playing faster, and the defense was actually worse, but the offense was better. So all that said, as badly as it seems like it went last year on offense, they were 7th, and that's again a testament to, for me, Trae. Now it's not all Trae, but again, Trae played 73 games. He's durable. And it's been proven now for basically, I won't say 5 years because the first half of his rookie season was pretty rough. But ever since then, he's basically proven to be a driver of efficient offense. It's not on his own, but if he has anybody around him, they're going to be good on offense. And again, I think maybe not majority, a lot of the credit should go to Trae for that. Defensively, we'll see. But I don't know. As we start wrapping it up, it's just like, I think Trae will be better this coming season than he was last year. And I think that there's a combination of his own performance and the team context. And you can debate what part of the pie that is, but I do think that he's going to be better and the team's going to be better on offense. Again, barring injury, all that stuff. And I think, again, knock on wood, Trae's been, for me, remarkably durable for a player of his size, who has his workload and his usage. For him to only miss a handful of games each year is pretty darn impressive, to be honest with you. And even when he does sit sometimes, he doesn't really like to sit. He likes to play. He'll play hurt. Like he does not like to sit and miss games. And I know this is like we're an hour into the podcast, but like I admire that about him. Like a lot of guys don't. I mean, back to backs will sit, and I know he's still a young guy, but like that's a notable thing to know that your guy in capital letters is going to be out there every night. Is that much.
Yeah. You hear it all the time when people talk about the Braves, right? And that's the thing for them, right?
Yes.
But for Trae, him playing all the time, it's not like, and there is an aspect of luck, but he really works on his body. Like he's as hard a worker. I mean, by reputation, I don't know. I don't watch him every day.
I mean, again,
by
I'm not there
reputation,
either. But yes, I'm not there every day either. But I know enough people that would know that Trae works very, very hard.
Right. He works as hard as anybody. And, and for me, kind of starting to wind this down, like the narrative out there would make you think, oh, Trae one of the best 5-point guards in the league, right? I don't care about whatever exercise you want to do. Like, is he better than Ja, right? Is he better? The whole narrative for is he better than Jalen Brunson, right?
Yes, is the answer in my opinion. But
yes. All right. Trae is a no doubt all-star level point guard. He's capable of being first team All-NBA at his peak, right? The narrative that's out there, which we could have a long conversation about whose fault it is it that there's narratives out there. I think you just have to live with it in some ways, take ownership of it, whatever, right? The Hawks have to win consistently, right? The Hawks have to be more respected, right? In terms of be more feared as an opponent, right? There's this kind of thing that kind of goes around the league, and the media will kind of follow the narrative that players have, right? And those sorts of things. Why isn't Trae on Team USA? Good. Go look at all the players on Team USA that played at like blue blood college. Like there's a connection between the NCAA power coach. Like there's a systematic and political thing there, right? And I know Trae really wants that, and I tend to want people to have things that they work for to kind of come to them, right? Yes. That's the thing. But for Trae is awesome to me. He's a top 20 player in the league. He's absolutely one of the best, 3, 4, or 5 point guards in the league, depending upon kind of who we're considering point guards, those sorts of things. The Hawks are very fortunate to have him. Now, all of that's true, right? He should be first team All-NBA 2, 3, 4 times in his career, in my view. That's the capability he has. That's the talent he has. To make that happen, part of it is him continuing to get better in the areas that really matter. The other part is the organization continuing to put better roster construction around him, all of that sort of stuff. But for me, it's like, it goes back to Trae. Are you going to raise your defensive consistency, especially in the fourth quarter, right? Are you going to have a plan B, plan C, plan D when the defense takes your plan A away from you? And can you go to it like that? Does it become like a very instinctive thing that you're going to? Those, when what the kids say, or at least 10 years ago, they were saying there are levels to this, right? And that's what it is for Trae, right? That and he's not even 25 yet, and he's at a point where he has to kind of have these dimensions that he adds to his game to go from, let's say, a top 25 player in the league, whatever number you want to pick, to a top 15, to a top 10. It's those areas of the game that don't always show up in the box score, that are really important in the last 5 minutes, that really have a big impact on wins and losses in close games. And not only him, but the team has to kind of be better in those areas. But sometimes the team being better in those areas starts with their best player being better in those areas. This isn't me saying he's been terrible, right? But this is and it's fairly normal at age 25, 26 is when you're stepping into that being the developmental dimension you're working now on, right? Nothing else to prove as a guy who can get points. Nothing else to prove as a guy who can get assists, right? It's now, can we start to add to ability and consistency in those areas that impact wins and losses? That's what will get him to first team All-NBA. That's what will get the Hawks recognized as a team that can make a deep playoff run. That's where it is for me, and that's what I'm looking for from him this year.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. That's a great synopsis, and they got to win. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't mean, people listen to the podcast know that I don't often just boil it down to that, but it really is true. They have yet to have, even when they went to conference finals, they have yet to have a regular season where they were particularly impressive in this era of basketball. They have not won more than, 46, whatever it is, 45 games this entire time. And that's part of it. I mean, if you don't win for over 82, and I appreciate
they're back in the play-in.
Yeah,
they're back in the play-in.
And like, even if it's not Trae's fault, and right, you and I could shout that from the rooftops. If it happens, I'll be the first to say either way or not that what I believe. But if you're in the play-in again, like that, you're just not going to get that bump that other guys get. And we could spend a lot of time on like why he's underrated now, but I think part of it has to do with the fact that they kind of arrived early on that conference finals run. He got some respect that I was encouraged by. He was good in the playoffs when people thought he was going to be terrible in the playoffs. Remember, that was the whole thing. Oh, he can't do it in the playoffs, and he did it in the playoffs. But then they had to step back, and he gets blamed for that. And that's part of the deal when you're the number one guy. I will admit that. Whether it's there's other guys in the league that are fall prey to the same thing. It's not only a Trae problem, but his reputation is going to be tied to the team's performance. And the fact that the Hawks are seen by some as kind of a punching bag. There's been the front office stuff the last couple of years, lots of rumors about that and trade rumors, and it's kind of just been a little bit unsettled. I think the combination of having Snyder and hopefully some cohesion, and look, they got to win. And that's, at the end of the day, I think Trae will be a big reason why they do. I'm already forecasting improvement from last season. I'm pretty confident in that, barring injury and all that stuff. But yeah, I think long story short, Trae Young is really good. And, there's room for the discussion about like, if you want to build around a 6'1" offensive first point guard as your best player. And like, we've done that before. We'll do it again. There are limitations there, but like the reality is he's their best player by a lot and he's their guy. And I think he's worthy of being a franchise player. Like he's really, really, really good. And I look forward to, hopefully what I'm hoping is going to be some unlocking by the coaching staff. And I almost feel like I'm putting too much on that. But I'm really, really excited, maybe as a basketball observer, to see the combination of Trae and DeJounte and this whole group with a new staff that I really have a lot of faith in. I think Quinn's done a really good job at Utah and all that stuff. So I'm looking forward to it. But I think Trae Young's really good. Long story short.
and I'm looking forward to I'm looking forward to the young guys benefiting from kind of this as well, right? AJ and Jalen and Ayeka
and from Trae. Trae makes guys look good. That's the thing we should at least say. Like this passing, he makes guys look great. I mean,
I know. It's kind of not to open up a whole nother, but Sadiq Bey getting traded to Trae's team before he's extension eligible. Like a beautiful scenario for
all kinds of guys. I mean, honestly, you and I love John Collins. Yep. Trae definitely helped John on offense.
Absolutely.
Like, no question about it.
Yep.
As he got into his stature, he's been in Clint, he makes Clint look good. He got guys like Alex Len paid a little bit more than they probably would have been.
Yep.
All that kind of stuff. Like, there's always all kinds of examples of that. But yeah, Sadiq's a great example. I agree with you on that.
And I know Gallo had that injury internationally and stuff, but he probably, was set up Gallo to play 2 or 3 more because Gallo got wide open shots, didn't have to deal with traffic and
Gallo got one more deal from that. Hopefully Gallo comes back, but definitely no.
So he's good. He's good for the NBA economy, in that sense for sure. But but I am excited about watching Quinn and his staff kind of do this. I'm eager to see what the guys who haven't been the quickest decision makers, right? How they respond to the challenge that Quinn and his staff are bringing. I'm interested to see if there's any kind of different nuance on defense. I think this is about as interested as I've been in this team for a long time to kind of see what the convergence of player development, player improvement, plus this new coaching staff that got a taste of it last year, but Quinn actually has his staff in place now. I think it's going to be fascinating. People will ask me how many games are they going to win. I'm like, I still feel like I'd love to see them get to 50. That would be, I think, so fun to watch the Hawks fan base just kind of enjoy that kind of season. But I think it's going to take more consistency than they've showed in a while. And to me, that's the fork in the road is consistency or inconsistency. That's the difference between 44 and say 49, 50, 51. That's the difference, right?
That is the buzzword.
That's where it is, So we'll see. Like I'm the one who famously said a couple of years ago, the Hawks always look like a team that tries to figure out how much defense they have to play to win a game and don't play 1 ounce more of like that has to go away. That has to be no longer part of the identity, right? And that's part of the consistency thing. So I'm excited. It feels like the season is like forever away from us. Like way down. Like when. Do we know what media day is? What probably?
Man,
5 weeks.
Yeah, it's like 5. It's 5. I think it's 5 weeks from Monday or something like that. Yeah, I'll have to look at it. Yeah, it's around there.
And it's funny because like I haven't had much time to spend on Twitter like in a while, but when I like jump in there, I'm like, oh my god, no! Like let's just start the season because the conversations are just mind numbing, So let's get to media day. Let's get to some preseason games. Let's get to some things we can watch and consume and analyze and talk about. I'm ready, and I think for those that are interested, like man, enjoy the WNBA. It's awesome. If FIBA's your thing, enjoy that. That's great. But once that first preseason game gets here, so it's like fourth gear the rest of the way. So if you need to get a breather or whatever it is, I know I'm ready, but at the same time, it's like I'm kind of like, okay, I have a little bit more time to get myself ready for the pace that's going to come with the season because there's going to be, I think, just a lot to take in this year.
Yeah, I think you're right about all of those things. Glenn, thank you for doing this, my friend. I'm sure I'll find another gimmick to get you on the show very soon again, but I appreciate all of the time. One more plug for me, and I'll let you plug as well. The player capsules are still very, very valuable. There's hours of content Glenn and I talking earlier this summer. And honestly, it's almost weird how much it's still relevant because there's like not that much happening with the roster. So we got kind of lucky on that. There's a pretty long shelf life there. But if you missed all that, listen to those. Glenn, where else can they find all of your musings in the world?
So I always like to say, support our guys over at Peachtree Hoops. Wes is over there. He's taken over recently and doing a great job. Graham's tradition of the schedule analysis just came out, which is I look forward to that every year. No one could do what Graham does with a schedule being released. So support those guys over there. Kevin and I over at ATL 29. I still fondly remember when the three of us were present together for one episode. We'll have to make that happen again.
We'll do it again.
And,
yes.
And I'll start to put this out. I'm going to be in Atlanta in October. I'm hoping to attend the preseason game on the 14th. And so, if there's some folks who want to say hi and all that sort of stuff, we'll look forward to that. I'll have some time then, and look forward to saying hi to you, at least Brad, in person, and get together with Kevin as well. So, that's right around my birthday is right in that phase. I'm going to go spend my birthday with my daughter who lives in Chattanooga, but kind of book in the Atlanta around the weekends and stuff like that. So I'm excited about that trip and all of that. So so ATL 29 on Twitter at Willis_Glenn. Once the season gets going, you'll probably be like, oh my God, he broke down 17 plays right after the game was over. Slow down. But that's good. So I'm looking forward to that. Support everybody who's out there doing hard work. Almost all of them working harder than me putting Hawks content out. And I appreciate any support that gets thrown my way too.
Well, thank you, sir, for doing this. I sincerely appreciate it. Check out ATL 29 and all Glenn's musings and be part of the massive crowd that will surround Glenn in October, I'm sure, when it comes to watch the Hawks and all that fun stuff. But thanks, sir. I appreciate it. As for everybody else, please subscribe to this podcast as well, anywhere you get your podcasts. And we'll see you all next time.